Good.
All right. So, hello, my name is Benyn Norvys, and my pronouns are she, her, hers. You can call me Benyn or Ben or Benji or Benny. I answer to everything. I'm happy to be here with you today to share my thoughts on Cerridwen's curse or cure and fertility for the rest of us. And when we talk about for the rest of us, we're talking about all of us today. So to give you a little bit of background and full disclosure, I'm childless by choice. I can remember making that decision when I was about 10 or 11 years old. And it's been a good decision for me personally. I am an auntie, I'm a grand auntie, and I'm a step parent as well. And so I'm a member of the village that it takes to raise a child. And for our discussion tonight, I want to recognize that there are many, many reasons why people may or may not have children, some especially not have children. Some of us haven't yet, some don't want to. Some have concluded that life phase, some maybe fate has intervened in some way, and all of those paths are valid. On my path in both our society and in my pagan ways, I've had to confront how the concepts of mother and fertility relate to me as a cisgender woman. And so it's from that perspective that I'm going to speak tonight. But I think that reevaluating our interpretations of Cerridwen's tale may also apply across the gender and age spectrums, regardless of femininity or fertility, that really women in their childbearing years is a pretty small percentage of us. And so this applies for all of us. Cerridwen's central myth has been told and retold many times with variations in details, names, and spelling. So for tonight, I have chosen particular details and single spellings of old Gaelic words just for consistency purposes. And I also have a decidedly American accent and far too much caffeine in my system today. So with that said, I may mess up some of these pronunciations, so bear with me. Fertility is a central concept of most pagan traditions. It's celebrated throughout the Wheel of the Year, played out in the cycle of birth, death, and rebirth, and the primary attribute of the mother aspect of goddess, as well as several of the gods. Cerridwen's tale appears to reveal magical and dark aspects of mothering, but this is more than a story of an attempted infanticide, as we'll see, and Cerridwen is more than just a mother goddess. Tonight, we'll challenge those notions of the mother and the values of fertility towards greater inclusivity of genders and childless people through the lens of Cerridwen's tale. We'll begin the discussion tonight with some concepts on fertility, particularly in the feminine and in modern paganism. And then we'll visit Cerridwen's tale before taking a closer look at Cerridwen as both mother and crone and her associations with fertility. I'll ask you to consider how those attributes might be manifested in all people, regardless of gender or parenthood. We'll end with a meditative spell to invoke Cerridwen on our path of transformation. So the concept of fertility is central in neo-pagan belief systems. It's inherent in the Wheel of the Year. We understand that shifting seasons represent the cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. In many of the traditions, the goddess figure couples with birth in the god figure. The wheel can be divided into threes representing the maiden, mother, and crone. And this cycle mirrors the seasons as vegetation blossoms in the spring and early summer, reaches maturity in the late summer and fall, and enters dormancy in the late fall and winter. We celebrate the fertile earth in our spring and harvest rituals. Yule represents renewal and birth, and Emok, new beginnings upon fertile ground. At Ostara, we celebrate the visible signs of rebirth and growth. At Beltane, we appreciate coupling, fertility, pleasure, and sexuality, the physicality of fertility. At Litha, we celebrate abundance, and at Lunasa, the first harvest. At Mabon, coming up soon, we appreciate the bounty of Earth's fertility and begin to let go as the seasons slip into Samhain when it is time to die so that the soils can be reset and be nourished and new life begins again. Excuse me. The triple goddess is really our multi-use tool. It's our Swiss Army knife of magical symbolism. The triad represents the seasons of birth and death and rebirth in the Wheel of the Year, or birth, life, and death of the turning of seasons. It represents the three lit phases of the moon, waxing, full, and waning. It represents the three stages of a woman's life as maiden, mother, and crone. This is both the personification of aspects of the divine as well as expressions of self for the women practitioner. The maiden represents hope, light, and innocence. The mother represents fertility and nurturing, and the crone represents the wisdom gained along the way. Many of our deities represent one of these three aspects, and some, like Cerridwen, represent multiple aspects. So too, it's understood that each of the three aspects live within us at all times, perhaps one coming forward at various stages of our lives. Consider for a moment the connection between the moon phases and stages of life in the triple goddess. It's only at the full moon phase that the whole profile of the moon is seen. Is it any accident that the full moon corresponds with the mother in our triple goddess symbol? So too, perhaps the wholeness of the woman is then associated with the season of motherhood. We could consider the unseen aspects of the maiden and crone, namely sexuality and wisdom. I would argue that this archetype is in some ways archaic and it better fits the old ways. Modern women may live in the space in between these phases more often and for much longer periods of our lives. Consider the transitions from maiden to mother or mother to crone, for example. Today, it's more common for women to live as independent and sexual beings, putting creative energies into vocations or crafts rather than home and family. In a time before the triple goddess, I got the low system resource pop up on here. In the time before the triple goddess, prehistoric Europeans probably worshipped a great mother in two aspects, firstly as creatrix and secondly as a destroyer. And this great mother became known by a plurality of names at a much later date. The concept of mother and nature have been linked for eons. In fact, the word nature comes from natura and from the Latin meaning birth or character. The word earth comes from earth in Old English, which may have been the personified as a goddess. Personifications of earth and nature often take on feminine or mothering aspects, such as Mother Nature and Mother Earth. Tibetan, Chinese, Filipino, Greek, Syrian, Sumerian, Norse, Brythonic, and indigenous American cultures, just to name a few, revere a mountain goddess. Minoan, Phoenician, Greek, Roman, Anatolian, Moldavan, Slavic, Persian, Indus, Sumerian, Akkadian, Babylonian, Levantine, Egyptian, Etruscan, and Scythian cultures revered a mistress of wild animals. And it's no wonder that the earth's fruitfulness would be linked with feminine fertility. Both the earth and the womb offer the space and conditions for creation. In this way, we can think of defining fertility as the conditions and ability to create, not just to procreate or reproduce. And this is present in all people, not just those with fertile wombs that choose to give birth. Fertility is a key characteristic of the mother goddess, for which there are many, many, many names. The goddess is usually embodied with attributes associated with childbearing, such as large breasts, wide hips, and a spacious womb. One thing you'll notice about this list is that not all of the mother goddesses are the same. Some exhibit their nurturing ways in the classic home and hearth, but others are goddesses of agriculture, the hunt, warriors, or creatrixes in craft. Some are also associated with the underworld or death, a space sometimes reserved for the crone. But having the power to give life also means having the power to take it away, and in some of these traditions. Likewise, recall that death and decomposition create the fertile conditions that we saw in our Wheel of the Year. Fertility is not just the realm of the goddesses. Fertility can also be associated with the gods, many, many gods as well. Fertility of the gods is often depicted artistically with phalluses, horns, agricultural goods, and drink. There are also deities associated with creation and fertility that are neither male nor female. For example, Brahma is an androgynous bigendered deity that begets mortals. Begdochidi is a Navajo Dine creator trickster deity. Burhaburi is a Bengali androgynous earth deity. Daksa gender shifts to create daughters. Inari is a Shinto multiple gendered spirit of agriculture. Tano is a deity of sky and fertility in Ghana. And Warachocha is an Incan creator deity with both male and female attributes. So when we take these together, we can group these fertility deities into four common themes. First, I'll call the nature deities, representing earth, mountains, plants, animals, agriculture, and food. This would include Gaia, Diana, and Demeter. The second group I'll call deities of sexuality, love, and beauty, such as Aphrodite, Dionysus, and Eros. The third group are more traditionally deities of motherhood, partnership, and domestic nurturing, such as Brigid, Frigg, and Hestia. Lastly, we have the warriors and protectors, such as Athena, Bast, and Freya. And when we combine the first and last category of nature and the warrior, protector, provider, we also arrive at hunting, which is represented by Artemis or Pan. So now we can expand how we think about fertility. It includes creation and creativity, inspiration, rearing, growing, nurturing, nourishing, providing, and protecting. Those of us with the artist spirit or that love the crafts need to create. And our creations are much like our children. They need to be nourished, nurtured, loved, and guided. Those of us that teach or mentor share our wisdom to see others grow. Those of us with the warrior spirit are first and foremost protectors and defenders. And who really needs protecting but those more vulnerable, like, say, children? They don't have to be literal, and they don't have to be our own children. When these qualities are often expressed in gendered deity terms, they really do transcend gender. So I've provided links here to the poem by Thomas Love Peacock of Cerridwen's Tale and a YouTube video of Damn the Bard's song. And those the lyrics of those are in the handout as well. We're not going to look at those today, but we'll encapsulate the story. Cerridwen and her husband lived near Lake Bala with their twins, a boy and a girl. The daughter was beautiful, but the boy, named Morfram, was deformed and dark. Cerridwen feared for Morfram's future and the shortcomings that he would face. So she formulated a potion in her cauldron to make him wise and poetic as a way to balance his faults. A great bard he would become. She prepared all of the ingredients, but she needed help with this. Of course, she didn't want her potion secrets known, so she called in an old blind man to light the fire and a young boy named Gwayan Bach to stir. The concoction would need to be stirred for a year and a day until it was reduced to just 3 magical drops containing all of the wisdom in the world. The rest would be poison. Gwayan stirred and stirred and stirred for a year and a day, but on the very last day, he splashed some of the liquid, burning his thumb. He immediately stuck his thumb in his mouth to ease the pain, as we do, and he was overcome with the rush of acquiring such wisdom so rapidly. He knew Cerridwen would be furious. Frightened, he fled, but Cerridwen knew what he'd done and chased after him. The potion had given Gwayan amazing powers. He transformed himself into a hare to outrun her. Cerridwen shapeshifted into a greyhound and gave chase. She was gaining on him, so Gwayan ran towards the water, jumped in the air, and transformed into a fish, landing in the water. Cerridwen then transformed into an otter and continued the chase. Gwayan leapt out of the water and turned into a bird, flying away. But Cerridwen transformed herself into a hawk and continued the chase. She caught up to him and grabbed him in her large talons. Knowing he'd been caught, he transformed himself into a single grain of wheat and slipped from her grasp to the ground below. Confident she would catch him, she turned herself into a hen and ate the grain of Gwayan. Because of the magic, Gwayan was not destroyed, but rather the grain seeded in her womb, and she became pregnant. Knowing it was Gwayan in her womb, she vowed to kill the child once born. She waited the long 9 months and bore a beautiful baby boy. She could not bring herself to kill the child, so instead she sewed him into a leather bag and cast him into the sea and left it to the fate of winds and water. The reborn baby was found on the shore by a Celtic prince who took in the child, and the infant became the legendary Welsh bard Taliesin. Of course, being a bard, the story could just be a tale he told of his own provenance, a true demonstration that we are what we make of ourselves. When I first heard Cerridwen's tale, I thought it was horrendously awful. I may not have wanted children, but I certainly was no infanticidal maniac. I mean, I appreciate the dark, but this is just some kind of gloomy, evil shit going on in this story. I did not get it, right? And so Cerridwen's curse was very evident to me. The burden of loving a child led to her demise in character. Her darkness took her over the edge to a place where anger caused her to give chase. That anger festered as the baby grew in her womb, and she was cursed with a child she didn't want, and perhaps the knowledge that all of her efforts to protect Morfram, her son's futures, were cast aside. But this is also a tale of love. Cerridwen so loved Morfram that she moved heaven and earth, really, truly, to be able to provide him a better future. Sure, okay, that's easy. In this effort, she couldn't do so alone. She employed others to tend to the fire and stir the cauldron. Remember, it takes a village to impart wisdom. The pursuit of Gwayan represents the annual cycle of birth, death, and rebirth in the changing seasons. The cauldron and Cerridwen's womb represent the womb of manifestation and transformation. Creativity and inspiration need literal space to grow, and they need nourishment. This story reminds us that it takes creativity and a village to transform oneself and the wisdom to know to do so. Transformation is an advantage, and it can be used to determine our fates, but also a guiding hand is helpful. Without Cerridwen's pursuit and fertility, the boy would not have ever become the master bard. He owes his gift to Cerridwen, to the pursuit, to the potion, and to the boy that he may have never known for whom the potion was originally intended. We cannot be born or made into our destiny alone. It takes an entire village. Cerridwen's cure was only evident in retrospect, as they often are. These events, however unpleasant they were at the time, gave the world a legendary bard. Her anger, her love, her selflessness, and her selfishness, the rot of her desires, provided the fertile grounds needed for Gwayan to grow and transform into Taliesin. I think it's also important that Cerridwen did not create new life, but rather she transformed the life of Gwayan into the life of Taliesin. The power of transformation is available to all of us. Many of us transform children in our lives that we did not physically manifest into being. I'm an auntie, a grand auntie, a step parent, and a professor. You might be a teacher or a coach. You might be a foster parent, adopted parent, or a surrogate. You might be a drag mother. And the lives we transform don't necessarily have to be children's. Your fertility is the grounds for transformation in anyone's life that you have an effect on. I also think it's important that she did not have a sexual coupling in order to manifest this life. For cisgender men loving women, perhaps that's a message that, for cisgender men loving women, perhaps that's a message that our worth is not tied to the man. For women loving women, maybe a message that your fertility is valid in any form. For men and non-binary people, perhaps this is a message that fertility does not depend solely on the body's form, nor is it constrained by coupling of a binary opposites. And for those on the ace-aro spectrum, that fertility is maybe more than just about sexual and romantic coupling. Alwyn is described as divine inspiration. It's somewhat akin to nirvana and especially ascribed to poets and bards that describe it as the culmination of poetic wisdom, inspiration, and prophecy. It can be expressed as 3 rays of light representing mind, body, and spirit, land, sea, and sky, love, wisdom, and truth, life, death, and rebirth, creation, preservation, and destruction. As mother of the bard and goddess of poets and creatives, Cerridwen is deeply associated with Alwyn. Some images of her even have the word Alwyn inscribed upon her cauldron, and which represents the womb of inspiration. Cerridwen is indeed the guardian of transformation and rebirth, associated with nature's transformations. At fall, we're all fascinated with the changing of the seasons. What nature is doing is getting rid of what's no longer needed. Change is constructive. When we fight change, it hurts. When we embrace it, we can manage it much better. She'll destroy parts of your life, but only those parts that aren't right for you, if you trust her. Nature is always changing for the good. Change is not necessarily chaos or unconstructive. Without change, nature would just die. Just as the leaves change with the seasons to turn the old into new nourishment for the new, Cerridwen reminds us to celebrate the autumn in ourselves. If we invite her in and listen to change, the change can be a soft breeze. If not, if we resist, she'll blow the house down. In this way, she teaches us patience, to trust the process. And isn't patience a mothering virtue? We call Cerridwen a dark goddess because she appears to most of us forcefully in the dark time of the year or dark times in our lives. But really, she brings the light and holds us through those hard times as a present companion. I would argue that she's a goddess of light. She holds our hand like a mother would as we encounter the unknown and progress through the scary parts of growth. She's just there with us. And isn't that what makes a good mother? The one that can say, yes, baby, you got this. You're going to be all right. Keep going, right? Just, you got this. And just to be there. She's there with us when we come through and reemerge anew. Cerridwen is also a shapeshifter by nature. Shapeshifting is associated with wisdom in her tale. Shapeshifting personifies the qualities of being flexible and being able to perform many roles. It requires intimate knowledge of multiple ways of being, a complexity of spirit. Is this not a quality of motherhood that is present in so many of us not mothers? Is this not the quality of what Native Americans would term two spirits? To be creative, one seeks to create. The ultimate goal of fertility and nurturing is to create. Who best thinks first about the greater good, but a parent? Who best provides guidance as one navigates through life? To rebuild takes massive inspiration. There has to be a motivating reason that we blow up our lives. It also takes a lot of creativity to see the possibilities of what can become after. Cerridwen encompasses death, fertility, regeneration, renewal, magic, enchantment, prophecy, wisdom, and knowledge. Some of these may seem at odds with the other. She is complex as we are complex. Death, fertility, regeneration. Death, birth, rebirth. One is needed for the other. And what is such renewal if not magic? Magic, to cause change, to move, change, or create. Enchantment, the state of being under a spell of magic indeed. Prophecy is simply a prediction. Once one understands the patterns of nature, the cycles of life, the ebbs and flows of this realm, and has the knowledge and wisdom of experience, prophecy becomes demystified. And isn't that the job that we ascribe to the mother, to see what futures may lie ahead for the child, to predict outcomes and act accordingly? The mother guides her children, sharing her knowledge and wisdom. While I may be no mother, this is exactly what I do as an academic, a teacher, and as a writer. As a scientist, both physical and social, it's my job to make predictions and to advocate for wise action. Climate scientists, for example, prophesize how climate will change based on their knowledge of climate systems. Wisdom would suggest that actions be taken to change course to protect the environment on which we depend. This is what I do in my practice as I make a book of shadows and a grimoire. This is what each of us do when we meet each other in this group. This is what Otsana and Alba do as officiants. And for what purpose is this wisdom shared? Often it's to protect. As warriors, we're mothering. For me, this may mean advocacy for my students, for their futures, for the environment, for my LGBTQ community, and for justice. For those practicing draconic magic, the dragon may be a guide, read mother, or protector of the vulnerable, read mother. Isn't this what so many of us not called mother really do? And I argue that mothering is not just for women to do and for men to appreciate. All of these attributes, duties, and actions really transcend gender. Don't we all rely upon a fertile earth? Don't we all till the earth, giving back so that it may nourish us again? Don't we all have parts of ourselves that wither and rot so that something new can be born again in its place? Cerridwen embodies that energy of the harvest. This is the energy that tells us keep going. It's the fruits of fertility and a reminder that darkness and hunger will come. We should be wise enough to save as the fields are transformed. Remember also that Cerridwen was a master herbalist. When you work with plants, when you work with potions and elixirs and tonics, when you use your powers to heal, you're working in the realm of fertility, making something ready and giving it the conditions and chance to grow. Cerridwen is also called a moon goddess. Some say that she's associated with the full moon. Others will say that she manifests all three phases. The full moon marks the completion of a cycle. In other words, a transformation has taken place. Most of us, regardless of gender, have faced transformations in our lives. Perhaps it was when we became a pagan. For our gender nonconforming siblings, the phases of the moons may represent the process of coming out and transitioning. Cerridwen reminds us to let go of that which is no longer needed to make fertile grounds and to live in our truth. Cerridwen often represents the crone as the matron of wisdom, as dark goddess, as keeper of the cauldron, but I argue that she's all three. She's a shape-shifting, multitasking, loving, nurturing mother. And as maiden, she's the hopeful breeze of fertility and hope of what is to come. So I put in just a little bit of extra credit if you're interested in the 3 cauldrons of being, something for you to look into a little bit more as you're digging into Cerridwen and her symbolism. So when is the right time to call on Cerridwen? Call on Cerridwen when you seek inspiration, creativity, or manifestation. Call on Cerridwen when needing to let go of that which no longer serves you or the greatest good, or when challenged by life's rules, or when you need help navigating life. But remember, she's a dark mother. Be careful what you ask for. You might just get it. She does not ease our pain, covering it up with salves and kisses. Rather, she turns our hurts into wonders. If you're not ready to practice patience, don't ask for it. You'll get an opportunity to practice it. As a good mother, she is there when she's called upon, but you might not always like it. Perhaps you would like to set up an altar to Cerridwen or invite her into your spell work. Cerridwen's correspondences include the cauldron, which is associated with abundance, nurturing the feminine in the womb. Grain is associated with abundance and fertility. The white sow that's almost always by her side is a representation of spiritual enrichment. She's also associated with both autumn and spring as times of transformation, and the dark goddess as crone in spirit of the underworld, the embodiment of physical death and rebirth. Other associations include acorn, which symbolizes strength, power, immortality, and patience. Vervain, associated with purification, blessings, the divine, and warding harm. Sandalwood, associated with healing, purification, magic, grounding, and self-identity. Sage, associated with immortality, longevity, wisdom, protection, and grieving. And mugwort, associated with magic, divination, prophecy, dreams, stimulation, and menstrual medicine. Her trees include the apple tree, which is emblematic of fruitfulness and immortality. The oak, emblematic of rebirth and renewal. The divine and thunder, lightning and storms, and the hazel, which is the tree of knowledge and mystical wisdom. The white candle is used for protection, healing, and guidance. And her animals, besides the sow, also include the crow, which is associated with divination, mysteries, and magic. The hen as a symbol of fertility. The otter, which is emblematic of mysteries and helpfulness. And the greyhound representing companionship, protection, and loyalty. Her stone is moonstone, which holds the energy of love, power, healing, luck, and psychic abilities that enhance its sensitivity and nurturing instincts. Her direction is north, the direction of grounding, adaptability, and creativity. Her elements are earth and water, representing fertility and transformation. And her rune is the symbol on the screen, which is called the Rado, which represents the journey. So now we'll do a meditative spell to invoke Cerridwen. So if you brought a symbol of Cerridwen with you today, you may want to take it out and hold on to it or place it in front of you. Sit comfortably, feet flat on the ground. Close your eyes. We invoke Cerridwen into our circle. Great Cerridwen, goddess of magic and transformation, of inspiration and art, keeper of the cauldron, wise crone, dark mother, hopeful maiden. Show yourself to us, bless us, keep us safe in our transformations. We say to you, hail and welcome. Take a deep breath in, gathering with it whatever you need from the universe to nourish your soul. As you exhale, let that which you don't need right now at this very moment leave you on the whispers of your breath. Visualize in front of you a cauldron or a bowl. What is its texture? See its shape, round and full. Imagine its color. Run your hand along its side. How does it feel? What is it made of? Is it warm? Or is it cool? Imagine a viscous liquid in the bowl. Perhaps it's still, or maybe it's bubbling. You look deep into the bowl and Cerridwen appears in front of you. You feel warm and protected and safe. Consider what you might like to change or do in your life. Place an object in the bowl that represents this change. See the object and feel how it feels in your hand as you let it go. Allow the liquid to take the object. Run your hand in a counterclockwise motion over the bowl. Imagine yourself stirring the elixir. We'll stir it 3 times around, saying the first time, "Widdershins, widdershins, widdershins. I release what doesn't serve me." Visualize the burdens holding you back beginning to melt. With your second stir around counterclockwise, say, "Widdershins, widdershins, widdershins. I banish all negativity." Your burden is now dissipating deep into the cauldron. The third time round, "Widdershins, widdershins, widdershins. I cast out what may harm thee." You see the steam rising from the cauldron, taking with it all that you no longer need. Place in the cauldron an object that represents the newness you seek, the end result of change and transformation. Now stir 3 times clockwise. The first stir, say, "Deosil, Deosil, Deosil, find to me what I need." Imagine the liquid becoming more green. The second stir, say, "Deosil, Deosil, Deosil, nourish the sprightly seed." The liquid is becoming thicker and thicker. And on your thrice turn, "Deosil, Deosil, Deosil, your guidance I will heed." The liquid is now clearing, hazy, becoming more clear. It's now a crystal clear liquid. At the base of the cauldron, you see a magical object glowing. Lift the object out of the liquid. You know this object. It has always been inside you, and it's exactly what you need at this moment. Feel the energy of the object. Calming, peaceful, whole. Let its energy wash over you. Hold the object up. It is the very thing you need it to be. It is the thing blocking you moved away. It is the inspiration you needed to take action. It is the tool you needed at this exact moment. It is the product of your transformation. Hold it, embrace it, love it. Hold it and invoke Cerridwen. Cerridwen of fullest moon and darkest night, stir your cauldron by fire's light. Stir your cauldron where magic's born. Give it life and muse adorn. One thing becomes another, safe and changing in the mother, in womb and tomb and afterlife. Make your magic from joy and strife. Stand beside me with your sow. Manifest inspiration, show me how. Transformation, I be so bold. A new creation to behold. This tale has been spun, not yet done, so mote it be with harm to none. Take your object and tuck it in your heart. Imagine a pocket where you can place it and hold it always. It will always be there, forever changing for exactly what you need it to be. As we come back to the here and now, it will remain with you for as long as you need it. Cerridwen, Dark Mother, we thank you for your presence and blessing. We release you to the water and earth, to the fire and the air. Hail and farewell. When you're ready, slowly open your eyes and join us back in the present. Did anybody have an experience that they would like to share during the meditation?
I have to say that I had two objects, and I really cherished them both, and it was wonderful.
But is it really supposed to be about two objects? One you put in and one that comes out. What is the relationship between them?
The one that you put in is the one that you want to change, and the one you take out is the result of the change. But Amethyst, did you, when you said you had two objects, was it two objects that you took out?
Yes, two objects I took out.
So maybe there's more than one desire, more than one change that you need to make.
Maybe.
Yeah.
But it felt so right. It felt so right.
Oftentimes when I do this meditation, I also come out with two or three objects, and sometimes they make no sense to each other. And it's really like there's multiple things going on in my life, right? We're complex for sure. Yeah. So thank you. That was my presentation.